This deleted scene was initially over 1 hour long. I'm going to try to edit most of that out and just give you the main ideas, but who knows what's going to happen. First topic is this week, the Tupac Twitter account had a cryptic post that just said, "Expect me," and it said, "Come back at 5 p.m. the next day." We all did. There was nothing. 7 hours later, they announced a Tupac art exhibit. Gee. All right, here goes the rest of the video. This was all stuff that I cut out from the initial 1991 video and just threw it all here. It was all shaved out. Be thankful that you have a nice, concise 1991, and all the garbage is here. So don't hold this against me. But this is what was left over. 1990 leftover information plus news. In the previous episode, I forgot to start it off by saying, 1990, Chubb Rock jumps up on the scene with a lean and a pocket full of green. The green doesn't symbolize I made it on the top, but RoboCop last year was a shock. I can't get enough of that. Anytime I've heard 1990, the word spoken for the past 25 years, anytime I hear 1990, even if it's in a professional situation, once somebody says 1990, in my head I'm going, Chubb Rock jumps up on the scene with a lean and a pocket full of green. Oh yeah, what year was that? Oh, 1990? Oh, 1990? 1990, Chubb Rock jumps up on the scene with a lean and a pocket full of green. And then like on the third verse, I think it's Chubb Rock jumps up on the scene with a lean and a hardcore dream. And last year they remade RoboCop, so every time I heard RoboCop, oh, you're gonna go see RoboCop? Hey, RoboCop last year was a shock. Oh, yeah, I heard they're gonna remake RoboCop. RoboCop last year was a shock. So 1990, Chubb Rock, and RoboCop last year was a shock. Yeah, so if they ever come out with a RoboCop 2, RoboCop last year was a shock. All right, I feel much better now. I feel much better. In the 1989 Part 3 video, I had wanted to mention, and I forgot to, when I was talking about all the different economic ideologies, that we try to make the economic system of the world one size fits all, but it doesn't. There's different kinds of people, yet all of us have to live under a certain kind of economic system, and I just don't think one economic system is one size fits all. But I believe politics is really a discussion and an argument on economics, how we're going to spend the money and who is going to get the money, and how are we going to convince each other that that's the right way to do it. Now, the next topic is Catherine Austin Fitts. If you've never heard of Catherine Austin Fitts, find out. Look up anything on her. Everything she does is amazing. The info she provides from firsthand experiences helps you expand your own understanding of the global economic system, the domestic economic system. All right, next topic is Fantastic Four, MI5. I just recently went on vacation for a couple days, and Dr. Doom sees what's wrong with society, and he's like an opposite end of the spectrum perspective, but he lets that anger all consume him, just like the dark side of the Force. And if you get deep into the dark side of the Force in Star Wars, you'll see that they have points. The dark side has a lot of points to it, but when you let that anger consume you, then you do become evil. That's not to say that the opposite side is good, because the U.S. military was using the Fantastic Four as secret weapons. So you have both sides, both polarities have good and evil to it, and it's all about that middle ground. So that Fantastic Four, they stood up to the military and said, "You're not going to use us because we don't need you, and you can't control us." People and organizations are going to operate in their best interest. You could try to modify that and shape it in order to do different things, but ultimately that's going to happen. So how do we create a world that it can accommodate for that, but also enable prosperity for all, where it's not this group dominating this group, but if the flip side is the dominators are always afraid that if they stop dominating, then they will be the dominated. So how do we make the world so that everyone truly gets that equality without the ability to then dominate others? And I kind of presented those in the 1989 chapters, releasing invincibility and teleportation. Nobody has the advantage over the other. And then you got the New World Order. This is the next topic, New World Order, George H.W. Bush. He really did say the New World Order in his speeches, and it's always treated like it's conspiracy word. And I'm thinking, the guy said it in a public speech. I liked when TQ, the singer that had the song West Side, On his album, Kind of Blue, the album starts off with, "Welcome to the New World Order." It's kind of like the old one. I don't know if you've seen The Big Lebowski, but at the beginning of the first scene of the movie takes place on September 11th, 1991, the day that George H.W. Bush gave the New World Order speech. Because you see Jeff Lebowski, the dude, he writes his check, and the date on the check is 9/11/91. And isn't it just nuts that the New World Order speech was given 10 years to the day of 9/11/01? You might want to check out the video I have on this channel where I talk about Al Bielek. I actually spoke with Al Bielek on the phone for 3 hours in like May or June or July of 2001. And he vividly described 9/11 and the Iraq War to me on the phone before it all happened. I don't know how he did it, but he did. And I didn't even believe him at the time. All right, the next topic is Sergeant Lawrence is the son of Larry O. So I don't know if you guys follow Makavelli at the White Book on Twitter, but that's probably the same guy as Makavelli the Don on Facebook. And he did tweet with the 1990 video. Fun fact, Sergeant Lawrence is the son of Larry O. So there's another character from the 1990 chapter. Sergeant Lawrence is the son of Larry O. That's pretty interesting because that does kind of expand the story. It also kind of makes sense for that chapter because I don't know about you, but that chapter is kind of like, all right, what's other than it kind of plays into the 79 chapter. I guess that's like the conclusion of that deal or the beginning of it's the beginning of the New World Order. And also the end of, it ends the Cold War and begins the New World Order. So the chapter does make sense, but it just adds more, proximity to the book that Sergeant Lawrence is the son of Larry O. So that's kind of a neat fact, fun tidbit. I didn't even bother to research the characters because I thought they were just like caricatures, and I should not have not gave the White Book the props to do the work on that, to know that, it's all there for a reason. The next topic is Notorious B.I.G. murder. Ex-LAPD detective Russell Poole dies. I first heard of the story from the truthabouttupac.com website. They probably got this story from a major media outlet, but that's where I heard about it first. And it said that former LAPD detective Russell Poole, who led investigations on Notorious B.I.G.'s murder, has died. Poole died suddenly on Wednesday of a possible heart attack while speaking with Los Angeles County Sheriff's homicide investigators about a cold case, LA Times reports. Poole was the leading investigator on the killing of Notorious B.I.G. Christopher Wallace's death in 1997 when the rapper was slain, leaving a Soul Train Music Awards after party. After months of investigation, Poole accused a corrupt LAPD officer of conspiring with Death Row Records head Suge Knight to pull off the murder. Poole believed that the murder was retaliation for the killing of Tupac Shakur in Las Vegas 6 months prior. Following, then Police Chief Bernard Parks ordered Poole to cease his investigation. In protest, Poole retired from the department in 1999. Poole told CNN that, "I think I was getting too close to the truth. I think they feared the truth would be a scandal." And Poole would go on to file a lawsuit against the LAPD for violating his First Amendment rights when the department attempted to prevent him from going public with his information from the investigation, and later worked as a private investigator, in part continuing his work to solve the case. Anyway, there'll be a link to the story in the description below. But yeah, it's pretty interesting that he just, died. And finally, confidence and self-esteem and self-respect, self-concept. The Tupac wisdom from the last interview. I always felt like that was the most important part of the last interview. It's what really inspired me and enabled me to see human interaction and psychology, individual psychology, differently. Because Tupac said, when you have your confidence and self-esteem and self-respect, you'll stop putting yourselves in bad situations. And I think I might have talked about this in another chapter when I was speaking on how CeeLo from Goody Mob said, you always end up investing quality time in places you don't need to be. And most people do not have confidence and self-esteem and self-respect, no matter how much it's talked about in school. So many people lack those things, and that's why they don't speak out. That's why they don't have their own opinions. It's because they're lacking that confidence and self-esteem, because it gets beat out of you by society. There's so many societal like rules that everybody feels like they have to follow, otherwise they'll be outcasted. I mean, in ways I have been outcasted by being so outspoken, but when you do that, you become a leader, and there are some that do look up to you and do appreciate that you speak your mind. They probably won't stand with you all the time, but they do appreciate that you're speaking out. If you're righteous, they may stand with you, but most people follow, and they're not going to go out on a limb for you. But you got to be a man. You got to be an island. You got to speak it. You got to say the truth. Like Tupac said, every time I speak, I want the truth to come out. And when he said that, when I heard him say that, I was like, me too. Yes, 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 yes. Me too. Every time I speak, I too want the truth to come out. So do what you got to do to get your confidence, self-esteem, self-respect, your self-concept. When you have that, you could stand against anything. Without that, you can be manipulated and controlled. And, you know, there were periods of time where I did not understand those concepts. You know, after I became dumb and had to assimilate with society, then you kind of clone out for a while and you let others control you. But once you break free from that, you become a freed mind. And that's where I'm at now. I'm not perfect, and I'm not all knowing, but I do know some things. And I know that we're in a global manipulation. It's for our own safety. Not everybody is, like Jerry said, one of the, you know, the special few that can be initiated. I don't know what to do about the masses, but I do know that I want out of general population. And so I'm going to try to start doing those equations that I spoke about. And that's doing the work so that I am worthy to join something that's higher than just the standard population. And remember, if you're too scared or timid to speak out, just remember Tupac said, I'd rather die like a man than live like a coward. I've known this for a long time, that I got to put in the work. I got to do the equations. I just got to start doing it. I got to reallocate the way I spend my time and how I do my, you know, this Jedi wisdom. It's your focus becomes your reality. So what you think becomes. I got to just change the way I think again. And so I'm going to do a quick story here about the law of attraction. I didn't know it was called the law of attraction. I have a video on my site that elaborates further into this, but I discovered by accident in 1999 or 2000 that if I asked the universe a question, I would receive the answer to it within a week. And I tested this over and over again, and it worked over and over again. I literally could just propose a question that I wanted to know the answer to, and the universe would respond to me in mysterious ways. And during that year, I had gotten rid of all of my material possessions, and I was on a real quest. I must have been so connected to everything that I felt like I was a character in a movie at that point. Life became very bizarre. It's too long to explain. I've made other videos on it, so I'll put a link in the description below where you'll get an account of one or two of these experiences. But I'll say this, and you'll see that I proposed it to my friend, and when he did it, it worked out too. And I'm going to pass this wisdom on to you. If you have a question that you want to know the answer to, it could be a deep philosophical question. It could be the most strange, bizarre question you've ever had. Propose it to the universe, and I guarantee in a week, you're going to get the answer. Now, if you ask something stupid like, what are the lottery numbers? You'll probably get those too, but you just won't be aware enough to see them because, you know, they might come in the form of addresses and phone numbers and whatnot. So ask a deep philosophical question that you want the answer to. And be in tune to receive the message when you get it. And sometimes I'd ask a question to a tree, and the tree would just put the answer, like a picture, in my head. But I was really in tune at that point. I'm so out of tune with the universe right now that it's sad. But at the time, I was really in tune. And when you get in tune like that, your life becomes very magical. Things that are not normal happen all the time. And then the not normal becomes the normal. And it's really fun. And you feel like you're in control of your destiny and that you can manifest things to happen. Oh, and let me give you another anecdote that I don't have a video about. When I was like in middle school and high school, I had photo albums. And most people didn't have photo albums at the time. It was before the era of digital photography. But I always felt that these photos held magical powers to them. And I always found myself rearranging the photos in my photo album. And then I started to discover that the way I arranged the photos in my photo album began to cause reality to modify. And I know that sounds strange, but check this out. So once I stumbled upon this, I started to say, all right, I need to apply some kind of science to this to see if there is anything to this. And I revealed this to another one of my friends, and we came up with an idea on how to test this to see if it's real or not. So we took photos of two people that were enemies, that they didn't like each other, and we put them both into this bucket together just to see what would happen. And in 3 days, I get this phone call saying, you're not going to believe this, but these two people are hanging out. So the photographs were in a way like the tarot cards. And once I had done a bunch of experiments up to that point, but when I discovered that power, I said, I really shouldn't have this power. And I got rid of all my photographs. I kind of wish I didn't, because I really miss those pictures now, because they hold keys to my past. And I have such a awesome memory, because I always looked at the photos, and I feel like those photos kept my associative memory intact, because everybody's memory is called associative memory. So every memory is based on a previous memory. And by having a good photograph collection and by referencing those photos at night, it helped maintain my memory. And ever since I got rid of them, my ability to have the massive memory that I had at the time is just not as powerful as it once was. In fact, I barely remember anything about the past 15 years, the way I remembered about the years of which I had photographs, because those photographs maintained the memory. But the photos have magic powers, and that's why there are some cultures that don't like photography, because they think that there's magic powers built into it, because you're snapping a moment of time and capturing somebody's soul. And there's truth to that. You can't prove it with science, although I applied science to it by doing repeat experiments. And whatever we did with those photos, the reality would then ensue. You don't have to believe me, but it happened. I care less if you believe me. I know what happened in my life. After reading this chapter, I realized that I've practiced magic, and I'm somewhat of a wizard. Another story where we practiced magic, myself and the same guy that we did the photograph experiments with, we also realized that we could make rappers famous, not just rappers, but any entertainers famous, obscure ones, into household names. The way we stumbled upon it initially was when we had first met, we really clicked because he liked No Limit, I liked No Limit, and this is before Ghetto D. This is when No Limit was just an obscure group. Only the Ice Cream Man was the latest album, and True to the Game, the double CD. And he also liked Mystical, and I loved Mystical. And we were just like, whoa, how does this happen? Like, I've never met somebody that knew these two acts at the time. They're super famous now. You could thank us. And so when we're like, wow, we really like imagine if Mystical and No Limit were in the same group together. That would be so amazing. And then, like, I swear, like a week later, Ghetto D came out with Mystical joined on No Limit. I'll make him say, his name was Mystical. What a fitting title for this thing. Now, this is just the first anecdote. Let me show you more. The next year, 98, we were the 97, 98, we were the only rap group online. And while my group was multicultural, multi-ethnic, I was kind of the front man at the time, the white guy. And one of my friends from North or South Dakota said, hey, there's this other white rapper on the internet. He just won the 1997 Rap Olympics. His name is M&M, and he spelled it like the candy. And the song he sent it in real audio format. I don't know if you guys go back that far. This is before social network. This was Web 1. I don't even know if it was Web 1.0. Cable modems just came out. The song was Just Don't Give a What. And we were so impressed with the lyrics of it because his lyrics demonstrated that he was a student of the game as well as a performer and had a deep understanding. And myself and my group, Lyrical Fusion, we weren't just rappers. We were deep students of the game, hip-hop history, intricacies of rhyme format, and what Eminem was doing. This is the first song we ever heard by him, Just Don't Give a Fuck. And he had the line, I'm nicer than Pete. I'm on a quest to crush a milk bone. I'm everlasting. I whip vanilla ice with some silicone. And that let me know that he had knowledge of all the other white rappers out there. And again, the present day of the internet, everyone has obscure, specific knowledge, trivial knowledge. But trivial knowledge back then, like nerdcore, was forbidden. And to know deep little details and to be students of the game was not popular yet. And he also said you couldn't sell 2 copies if you pressed the double album. And knowledge of the music business wasn't really that available yet, although we were all fascinated with the music business, the business side of it, and how, if you make a double CD, it counts as 2 sales. Just the fact that Eminem understood that and put it into rhyme format and expressed it as he did, we were like, this guy has the knowledge. This guy has got to be big. And then it's like the 5 of us, we all sat together, listened. We're like, man, this guy is something else. We didn't even know what the guy looked like. And then literally like the next day, all over the world, it was Dr. Dre signs Eminem, the 1997 Rap Olympic champion. And we were like, wow. But again, these are 2 small anecdotes, but this is when we started to discover we had this power. So watch what we do next. Because I'll give you, the first 2 could have been coincidental. There's nothing really that deep there. And these 2 are just ones that are off the top of my head. We did this with countless other artists and actors and actresses. But we started to discover that everything we said would become reality. So we wanted to put an even more difficult item to the test. And so we said, and this will be hard to comprehend now because of what's happened. But we said, UGK, they're a really good group and nobody knows who they are. If our powers of this magic are real, UGK will become world famous within the next month. And we were partly doubting ourselves when we said that even. Because we were like, come on, UGK at the time was such a long shot. And then lo and behold, literally like a week later, Big Pimpin' with Jay-Z of all people, the Grand Wizard. UGK is doing Big Pimpin' with Jay-Z. We were like, dude, we got to even try the next thing. So the next one was such a long shot that we knew the universe would have to pull some strings for this one. But we said, Devin the Dude. Now that's an obscure one. We want the universe to make Devin the Dude a made man. How can that happen? So we did our little sorcery for Devin the Dude. And it took a little bit, but about 2 months later, the Dr. Dre Up in Smoke DVD tour came out. And Devin the Dude performed I Just Wanna Fuck You, because it was on the Dr. Dre 2001 album. Actually, I think that's what it was. We saw that he was on the Dr. Dre 2001 album, and we're like, bro, who would have thought Devin the Dude from Texas would wind up on California Dr. Dre's Chronic 2001 Immortal album? And there it was. So then I started to say, all right, well, let's see if we can make massive shifts. And so I said, I want rappers to stop keeping it real and start making all mainstream music that is not just mainstream pop BS. And thus began the era of Ja Rule. Not necessarily Ja Rule per se, but love songs, rap songs that were made for the women in the spirit of Tupac. As Pac used to say, you got to make the song for the bitches, the brothers buy what the bitches want. So we made that true. And then that disgusted me so bad, that era, that I then said, I am now the man who ruined hip hop. And I wrote a song called The Man Who Ruined Hip Hop. And hip hop was ruined. And that's when Nas made Hip Hop Is Dead a little bit later. Now, you could still think this is all coincidental. That's fine. But watch this. I was a No Limit fan, but then there was one day when we just finished our junior year in college. We were driving home and we were listening to the C Murder album, Life or Death. And something clicked in our mind and we were like, why do we listen to this garbage? And from that day forth, No Limit just crumbled. But there's been 2 artists that we've stayed with to this day. And to this day, they are still significant. And those 2 artists are Bone Thugs and Harmony. And they're literally the only rap group still standing. And I still follow them to this day. And Tupac. And Tupac is so global, so around the world, still on everybody's mind, still probably the most popular rapper 19 years later. And they've endured. And that's not just, my magic. It's the magic from all of us because, we all keep Tupac's spirit here. And that is a form of magic. And it's a form of wizardry. And magic is not bad. Think about the thoughts you've had for Tupac over the past 19 years. They're not normal thoughts. The feelings that have emanated through all of your aspects of your frontal lobe, your chest, your chakras, your prayers, the emotions that you've pressed upon the world in Tupac's spirit is magic. That is wizardry. And that is why 19 years later in 2015, we're still talking about him. You could write all this stuff off as just coincidental or that these artists had talent and should be famous. But I'll tell you, the things we did weren't normal. It's hard to explain it, hard to express our what we cooked up and how we did it. But we sure made the future happen. And these were just the rap examples. We did it with actors. We did it with culture. And then we also saw, like, one of the things we cooked up was we described Trina from Trick Daddy. And she came to be. But then we also saw the consequences of that when we saw a van pull up with like 12 10-year-old girls and they were all singing the lyrics to Nan. And that's when we realized we need to stop playing with magic. So if you enjoy stories like this, check out my other videos on my channel. Most people join cults. I stumbled into it, or I was born into it. Kind of like Tupac was born into the Black Panthers. I was born into just not necessarily my family, but my experiences. I've had so many paranormal experiences in my life because I'm in tune to it. And I also recall where I came from and most likely where I'm going. And I know what I'm doing here. Later on in this chapter, Jerry and AD have a conversation about this. And I'll cover that later on in this video. But you really want to check out the videos I got just to get a glimpse. And I've only scratched the surface with my stories, but I've had a very profound existence. And, this reminds me of the book Initiation by Elizabeth Heitch. I was pretty interested when I saw that Tupac had read this book. When I was in college, again, during this period of time when all these the strangest parts of my life where the paranormal was happening on a daily basis, one of the wise friends that I had suggested that I read Initiation by Elizabeth Heitch in a way that was somewhat of an initiation into a higher order of thought. And I read the book, but it was way before my ability to fully understand what I was reading. The things I remember from it were that she was a pharaoh priestess, like a female pharaoh. And she had control over the lions of her chariot. And she was able to control them with her mind because her spiritual frequency was at this level of which the lions saw her as a god or a goddess. But then she fell in love with this mortal human being. And when they had sex, it brought her spiritual frequency down. And then the lions were able to smell her flesh and then ate her and killed her. And then she was in her coffin for about 1,000 years. But she was like still alive, or she had many lives or can be reincarnated. And that's really all I remember. But it reminded me of Anakin Skywalker in the prequel trilogy. And the way he was undisciplined and how the Jedi masters like Yoda didn't think he was ready, and he wanted to be a Jedi before he was ready. And Elizabeth and the character in Initiation wanted to be a priestess pharaoh before she was ready. And in fact, the wise person in Initiation told her to have like boyfriends and sexual encounters with people prior to becoming a pharaoh. And she wanted to like have both, or she thought she was above earthly desires. And thus, that's how she ended up getting killed. And that's all I remember from it. I read it in like 99. But Initiation is something that Tupac also read. And I would add that I think that reading Initiation is like a prerequisite for initiation into a higher order society. I never got to join it because at the time I I didn't think secrets were meant to be kept like that, because I'm here to spread a message, not to hide a message like Jerry and AD do. And like I said, later on in this video, I'll explain. And so this is the part where I said earlier that I would tell you the secret that Jerry had said to AD, would you reveal those answers? No, you'd keep it hush hush. But I wouldn't, because I remember where I'm from. And my memory is I remember choosing my life from a catalog of lives in another dimension before I came into the body that I have now. I remember where I was. I remember they asked me if I wanted to live again, and I said yes. Well, actually, I didn't say it right away. Somebody kind of convinced me to do that. And then I got whisked into this place. I mean, you don't have a body or anything, but they showed me a catalog of lives, and there was life after life that I passed on. Most had like all these material gains you could get, but all these tragedies. And so it was like pros and cons that kept going through all of them until they got to the life that I selected now. And the description was, you will bring a concept to the planet that will change the way everybody sees reality. And so I've been trying to figure out what that concept is my whole life. And maybe the concept is this concept that we choose our lives in another dimension. And I believe that if people started to believe that and, maybe remember that, then we create a better world for all of us to live in, because we're all here voluntarily. And I feel like I'm here voluntarily, and that's why I'm angry that I have to spend my time in the rat race, because I'm a VIP prophet here on the planet to bring this concept that's supposed to change everybody. But I know that these trials that I go through are part of the shaping process, because they told me when they got to my life, they said, well, this, and this happens. And I'm like, oh, that kind of sucks, but it's not tragic like these other ones. And I said, well, is there like a trick to this? Like this person can't handle those, minor inconveniences. And they said to me, no, these things must happen in order to shape you, in order for you to become the person you need to be, to bring forth the concept that you have to bring forth. And I had communication with these people even after I was born. I even remember my parents bringing me home from the hospital for the first time thinking, holy smokes, what did I just get myself into? But I remember vividly being in my crib, having nonstop communication, the ability to leave my body. And then there was a day where I had left my body and I was sitting on the carpet outside of my crib. And the crib had bars. It was like being in a prison, I don't know if you remember your crib, but my crib had bars on it. I used to try to unscrew all the handles, even when I was an infant. But I remember being on the carpet, and they said, all right, listen, we're going to shut off communication with you now, and you have to assimilate yourself to the world that you're now in. And I was like, well, what year am I in? And they said, it's 1980. And I was like, what the fuck? 1980? Come on, man. I want to be in the future. And I was born in 79. But when I had this conversation, it was 1980. And they said, no, you're placed in the most perfect time, because this is the time of the most rapid change, and it's the proper environment for you to bring forth the information that you have to bring forth. And that's why we put you here. So obviously we do live in a rapidly evolving time. From 1980 to 2015, the year I'm recording this, there has been dramatic change. And so they said they're going to shut off communication, but that doesn't mean that they're not still there. I just won't be able to hear them anymore. And but then if I needed them, I could always request out. And that they said that they put people in place to guide me along my journey in order to shape me. And so once they cut off the communication, what once felt like infinite wisdom that I had, I suddenly felt dumb, so dumb, so dumb. I remember the moment, right now as I'm talking about this, I'm remembering exactly where I was. And it was like suddenly I noticed that my carpet was green. It was like a lime green, a light lime green, and it had a scent to it. And I could hear the air conditioner for the first time. And all my senses were kind of heightened. And I was like, oh man, I'm a boy, a little boy. And before that, if I had any questions, I could always just ask. It felt like I always had a conversation going on from, pre-birth to infancy to 1 year old. And then once they shut off the communication, the dumbness, I can't even express how dumb, having all the the other world dimension turned off, and suddenly you have no knowledge. And I was like, dang, all right, well, I got to trust these people to guide me along the way and find all these guides that are along the way to shape me. So here I am. I'm still trying to figure it all out at 36. And I've faced a strange journey because, society's conditioned not to have any kind of discussions like this. If you do, you're a weirdo and whatnot. But I just don't care because I know I'm on a mission. So I'm going to say this to anybody. Right now I'm saying it to the world. I don't care who, because I have to say this because this is what I'm here to do. And so thus, there's been plenty of ridicule in my life. People must think I'm a weirdo. But when you've had the experiences that I've had, not just that memory, because you could still say I'm delusional on that, but the things that happened in 99, 2000, 2001, and even somewhat to this day, everything it's there. I have pictures of me when I was like 1 or 2 years old, drawing pictures that said, "Mom, I remember when I was born." This is a track I recorded when I was 15 years old, where I explained the whole thing. On my album Mind Over Matrix, I have the song called "I Believe." And then, I've got books that I wrote about it. So it's not like I just came up with this one day. This has been my whole life. I've always seen the world different. I remember being in preschool at church, just hearing the stories that they would tell us. And I'm thinking, that's not what happens. That's not what I experienced. And I'd just be confused with adults that all went along with the religion stories, but like through their lives, they were authority figures and they would act like they have everything all figured out. But then it's like when it comes to religion, everybody could believe in all this stuff that they have no empirical evidence for or no experiential evidence. And nobody alive knows anybody that knew anybody, whether it's Muhammad, Jesus, or anybody. It's so far removed from our present day 2015. At the time, the year was like 1981. Nobody even knows George Washington. It's let alone Jesus or Muhammad. And think of the wars and think of the killings and all of it. What I'm faced with is I'm the weirdo, but I express and discuss the things I recall. Everybody else in the world goes about their daily lives like everything is nice and normal, like only the laws of physics exist, that no paranormal things happen. Yet when you look at just everything about your human body and how it functions, you could say it's science because we do have the medical establishment, but when you get down to atoms, subatomic particles, quarks, and strings, and the fabric of nature, photons, light, nothing is normal. Even the laws of physics are not normal because as physics operates, that means that somebody programmed the universe to behave as it does. It doesn't randomly do things. It does it wouldn't be strange if everything was random, but because things obey an ordered set of laws, that to me is strange. And so we live in a world where everybody's holding secrets from one another, all these secrets, and I'm just trying to offer all of my secrets. And here's my secret. It's not a secret, but here's my message. I remember choosing my life in the afterlife dimension. I chose my life from a catalog of lives. And the life I have now, the description was, I'm supposed to bring a concept to the planet that's going to change the way humans see reality. So I'm just trying to do what I'm supposed to do. And that's to share that message, that secret. I've always hated secrets. Even when I learned how to play card games, I was better at the patterns than everybody else. I would show everybody my cards because they were so caught up in their secrets and hiding their cards that it threw their game off because they had the ability to see my cards. And it just wrecked their mind so much. So I was like, you guys are so my cards. You can't see my cards. And I'm like, look, I have no secrets. You want to see my cards? Here's my cards. See if you could beat me. People have gotten better at cards now, so people kind of have gotten past my early on intelligence. But I had a secret weapon, and that was the ability to communicate with the other world at the time. So I should try to probably reopen that channel. I've never really tried, except a few times. And I'll just let you know, the secret is that the world is not normal the way it's been presented to you. They present everything as nice and normal so that you do not use your special powers that you have, because thou art God and you have powers. We all have powers. It's really not ours. It comes from another realm, but you could tap into that. And they don't want you to know that. They use all of our frontal lobes to be reality producing machines to manifest the reality that they want pushed onto the world. Reclaim your reality producing machine of your frontal lobe and use it to manifest the reality that you want, not what they want. My biggest angst is the theft of my time. My time is stolen. I have so much to give. You know, there's that song by Ice Cube and Crazy Bone where he goes, I got too much life to live, too many orders to give. What it is, showbiz. Till We Rich is the name of the song. 20s, light our joints but ones, have nothing but fun. And people are often like, how do you make so many videos? How do you make videos, books, DVDs, CDs? Where's that inspiration? How do you have that drive to do all this? In between working a 40-hour work week, being a husband, keeping up with everything. Don't you ever take a break? Don't you ever relax? Don't you ever enjoy yourself? The anger of them jacking my time is what drives me to do more with less all the time. And I saw Alex Jones once say that, when you find your calling, it drives every moment of your life, every ounce of your being, and you give it all. Like, I'm not, some people got problems with AJ, but, I know he's living his mission, and I'm just trying to live mine. And when I have the burden of, like, I got to bring this concept to the planet, and I don't know how, so I'm trying everything I can to bring it. That's why I've never focused on, like, one thing, because I'm just, like, always like, oh my God, I got to do this. How am I going to do this? So that's why that's why I have the ability to create all this. And as Jay-Z says that he goes into some realm where the information just comes to him. When I was writing Mind Over Matrix, the CD, my album, those lyrics are so divine that I must have gone, I was saying like I was receiving a fax from the other dimension to write the lyrics. Like one of the lines, we are all one. My feet attached to the ground that you walk on, my soul merged with yours in each and every one. Consciousness evolves as we revolve around the sun. You see, ignorance is not bliss. It's a disease. I'm motivated by God, not motivated by greed. I'm not going to stop until every single mind freed. I'm not going to stop until we have real world peace. And I'm not even a good rapper, but like Pac and everybody else saw that this was a medium that we could express and share information. And so that's what drew me to it. Was when I first heard it in 85, I was like, this is a way to communicate. And I remember when I got my first tape recorder, like in 1982 or 83, I was like, I can't believe they're going to allow me to record my voice and reproduce it. This is the tool that I'm going to use to bring this message forward. And so that even it's been with me since the beginning. Part of it was kind of like, imagine the power. But the reality is that deep down is that I just want to express my unique perspective of the world. It's unfiltered. To me, it's the truth. And it's probably your truth too. And so this is what I say to people. I say, what is your earliest memory? What is your earliest memory? And then I say, all right, now if somebody remembers, most people say, I remember I was like 4 years old, I was on a slide. And then I said, well, what were you thinking about? If you could remember back to that point, what were the thoughts going on in your mind? Do you remember what you dreamed about when you were a child? Because those dreams had to have been based on reality. So what do infants dream about? And I always try to get people to ask the youngest kids these questions like, hey, where did you come from before you were here? Most kids won't know, but you'll get a few kids that will give you really interesting answers. And you're going to find most parents are too scared to ask their kids questions like this. Most people are too afraid to think back. I don't know where there's this fear. There's such a fear of expressing yourself, and there's a fear of thinking about deep things and to face your fears. You got to face your fears every day. You always face your fears. When you confront, then you move on. It's like it unlocks part of, what's holding you back. And don't be scared to ask these questions and ask the children They are fresh out of the afterlife dimension. They're fresh out of the afterlife dimension. Imagine how much wisdom we could gain from them. The problem is the way we raise them, it causes them to wipe their brains clean and forget everything that they remember with all the stupid ways we bring them up. But if as soon as they can speak, start asking them things, like, where were you 5 years ago? They might not even understand how to understand years, but basically, where were you before you were here? Some of them get it, and they're going to tell you things that are going to blow you away. I hope this was useful to you. I hope the information I just shared causes you to think about your own life, because it's not really for me to speak on me. It's for me to share this with you so that your life could advance, or it gives you a higher perspective and leads you on your journey. Because I'm not here for me. I'm here to bring a concept to the planet that's going to change the way everyone sees everything. So I don't know what that concept is other than my own memories, that I remember where I was before I came here, and I remember choosing my life, so I'm here voluntarily. And if these things happen to me, they must have happened to you. And I also had communication with the afterlife even after I was born into my body, from infancy to about 1.5 years old. And so if they were able to communicate with me at that point and they're still there, I must have a spiritual group that, I don't know how many of them there are, but there's people that watch over me, and you probably have them too. And the Celestine prophecy is what really kind of helped get more of my understanding of what I was experiencing out. I did a whole series on the Celestine prophecy. It's on my channel. You might want to check that out. You might want to read the book too. The book is fantastic. Like as I was reading the chapter with Jay-Z, and it was saying 49 seconds later, I was really jealous of that ability to like stop time that they did there. And I really could benefit from having the ability to stop time so I could learn a lot of things and do more with my time, because I'm always in a race against the clock. I sing the song by Ja Rule all the time. In my race against time, I can't stop running through the red light. It's all the time, because I'm always in a race against time. Most people look at the clock and they're like, God, when is it going to be such and such time? I'm always like, no. The time is slipping. Time is slipping. I need more time. If you know how to stop time, please, I need to know. And this exclusion, always excluding people. I just want to bring everybody in, but the truth is, not everybody is a Jedi. So bringing the chosen few that have done the work to get in, I understand. And I too am trying to do the work in different parts. I don't know if I had mentioned this story already, but there was a time where I must have. When I was talking about the equations and I was speaking with a master, and he said, so you haven't done the equations and you think you deserve to be in when you just know the concepts, but you haven't put in the work to do the actual equations? If you only know the concepts and you haven't put in the work, you're a poser. You're not real. You need to do the work. So come back when you've done the equations. And I was told that over 10 years ago, maybe over 15 years ago, and I still haven't done the equations. As much as I try to master my use of time, I still have not mastered my use of time. And I haven't done the work. So you have to do the work. And I'm telling the story because you have to do the work. I'm doing some of the work here by creating these videos, but I'm not doing the work. Each of these slides are entire studies. That's the magic of this book. And these videos are to give you the path to take your research further. Because if I did the full research on all this, these videos would be 800 minutes long each. And this too, as I was saying earlier about the children, how we don't ask them the questions and then they forget because they get conditioned to the societal norms and to block out these kind of thoughts. As AD and Jerry were in the car together, he starts to recall information from his youth, from his childhood, when he entered paradise, the Splendor chapter. I love that line. I was hot before Barack. Imagine what I'm going to do now. Song of the Week is Institutionalized by Lyrical Fusion. It's my old group from 1998. Our album is called The Final Toast. This album was a internet hip-hop classic, one of the first of the internet. It was underground, but around the world. Touched a lot of people, shaped a lot of people. And this particular song did involve, for ourselves, a lot of sorcery. And after we made it, all of us changed as people. Like, making this song changed who we were and altered the path of our lives forever after. It's an amazing song.
I must maintain and keep focus and just believe my life is not hopeless. Nevertheless, with stress, I must confess my thoughts, my feelings while staring at the ceiling, blocking all lights of energy, cause I feel like death is threatening me. Or is it just my guilty conscience of all the dirt I did when I was a kid? So many bids, I flipped my lid. Mama looked me in my eyes. Why is my young boy always institutionalized? I feel like half my mind is paralyzed. My mental frame is shook. So much pain inside, you could write a book. Look, only in time I shall find where this path is taking me. Feel like the devil's raping me. There's no escaping. Envy, trend, move, soothe me like the smell of fame. Send me to a different planet. All this stress at one time, I can't handle it. Should I have it?
My sick thoughts cause me to push my problems back. The way I act make me feel like I'm in a strange act. In fact, I twist heavenly bliss, dismissed by the powers in the diss list, causing people to say the tit, the tap, reveal my mask, open urge to blast, to laugh. No one only happens to shit in my past. The hollow happiness never lasts. So to the next victim, the last of the trash on the energy to grab, added to my tab. The stab wounds, the scatter platoons, living in this fucking cartoon with these faded pictures, living for the next critters, only for the body bag and closing the zipper. Me in the river, innocent boat, fletching more down the commode. Shit infested inside of our soul, hard of gold. Whenever we hold, and part of us is still living in the old. Cause it's cold in here, the fear, hidden tears. The years of tour put our peers, the family figures. Change the sinners, the summer, the winter. Now it's fit for the beginners. Watch your back, cause you get tapped. And it's simple as it seems to look back.
Take it from existence, but what did you give? You have hurt so many people, but what did you get? So much pain to remember, and that's why we forget. So hard to make a change, cause I'm so deep in this game. If I stepped up this thing, would you still know my name? Would you still come around? Would you still say I'm down? If I was part of some people, would you still give me a pound? I'm institutionalized, cause I'm brought to this world without a guarantee of a future. I cannot relieve my tormented soul. It's institutionalized.
So anyway, I'll see you all in 1992. I put together a blog website to aggregate all of the videos into a single spot for ease of following. A few people kind of, the YouTube method is kind of difficult, so I rapidly whipped together the white book by Makavelli.blogspot.com. I don't even remember if that's the actual URL. There will be a URL in the description below. And, I don't know. Hopefully that'll be useful. And hopefully over time I might even add more stuff to it. It might become a good resource. And I'm not trying to compete with the other White Book Decoded and whatever else is out there. I found it kind of hard to navigate those sites on my iPad. And that's why I really don't have the time to participate in those things. But this is not to compete. This is just a way to aggregate all the videos into a linear way for people to follow along. So if you want to use that site, you can. Otherwise, that's cool too. It's just there. Anyway, thank you for watching. Yeah, this is way over the 10-minute mark I was shooting for, but, it bees like that sometimes because I can't control the rhyme. I'll see you in 1992.